What is your I was trying to be cool but it backfired story? 4th grade at recess. There was this girl Madison who I, and every other guy, had a crush on. The school just built these new monkey bars, which in my mind was the perfect time to show off my skills to Madison. People were jumping from the platform to the 3rd bar and I was like PFFFF it'll jump farther. I called out to her, "Hey Madison, watch this," which in turn made everyone else look. I aimed for the 4th monkey bar, made my jump, missed the bar through my fingertips, and came crashing down face first into the mulch. I cried and ran away. I actually moved away that summer to a new state and a new school cause of my dad's job. So everything worked out. Cause of dad's job. Sure. In high school, I had a crooked and uneven hairline. So, I shaved and shaped my front hairline into a nice and even V shape instead. Looking back at pictures now, that V-shaped hairline looks so unnatural and makes me look like a vampire. A college phys ed instructor asked me if I could help him out on day 1 of a trampoline class he was teaching. I was a diver and had a lot of trampoline experience. He just needed me to demonstrate all the basics they'd be learning during the semester. After I had done that, he asked me if I wanted to show off a little before I got off. I was delighted to, because more than half the class was hot girls. I had a few tricks that I knew would impress them, and started out with a back double somersault. Nailed it, but when I landed I farted. Everyone had been silent, so there was no doubt what happened. A few giggles. I did another trick or two, then scooted out of there. That happened to me in a judo class. 10 girls, 2 guys, in college. My exam was to break free from a hold laying on my back. The guy doing the hold was a total beast and squished me down like heck. As I struggled, I farted like a giant whoopee cushion being trampled by elephants. I thought I would really wow the class by bringing in my harmonica for show and tell. Kids would bring in their teddy bears, or some toy, but not me. I was going to perform. I told my mom about my idea and she was all about it. I'd show off my harmonica, and then play a few songs. Mom and I played guess the song all the time, so surely it would be a hit. And so I got up in front of the class. "This is my harmonica. Who wants to guess the song?" Everyone leaned in. This was my big moment. Man, I blew into the thing until I was blue in the face. I freaking John Poppered all those kids. Stunned silence. Nobody could guess the song. Humiliated. I told them it was Old MacDonald and went and sat down. Yep, I didn't know how to play harmonica. Mom just knew I always said I was playing Old MacDonald, so she could always guess what I was playing. Yep, your mom trolled you hard. My dad bought a new AMG Mercedes. I took it to run an errand. So, I'm walking out of the supermarket and some girls are checking out the car. I wanted to hit the remote ignition and be all James Bond-like. Instead I opened the trunk. I looked even more stupid when I put a loaf of bread in the trunk. This is great. Rather than admit that you hit the wrong button, you proceed to put a loaf of bread in the trunk. I think you'd have been better off just saying new car, shrugging, and then doing donuts for several minutes until the police arrive. My sister and I had just seen The Matrix, so I tried to jump up the walls of a tight hallway. I kicked a hole in the wall instead. That's even cooler. Asked a friend to tell everyone I saved him from a burning building. He instead told everyone I was gay. I am not gay. Frick you, Robbie. Met this gorgeous girl one time and asked for her phone number. She reached into her purse to grab a pen and paper to write it down, before cell phones. And I said no, I'll remember it. And I did. For about an hour. Then it was gone forever. This is making me angry. Was standing in the water talking to a cute guy, and tried to smoothly tilt my head back in the water to wet my hair and get it out of my face. At that moment a huge wave comes out of nowhere, hitting me in the face and causing me to get water up my nose, have a coughing fit, and drop my beer in the water. I hope the beer was okay. It was 11th grade. I had a huge crush on this girl that also had an interest in me. We were in Pay and were walking to the track outside to run the mile. There was a fence that I thought I could jump over. So, naturally, I thought that I should try and show off. The fence caught onto my shoe, tripping me midair, which led to me sliding down a small gravel hill on my butt. The rest of class was spent running while blood dripped out of my shorts and down my legs from my butt wound. Still have that scar on my butt. I was in the 3rd grade. Had a huge crush on one of the girls in my class, and one day after school she hung around while we were both waiting for our parents. We were on the swings and I was always able to swing forward with enough momentum to lean back and do like a backflip, whatever you call it, out of the swing. Thought this would impress her, so I went for it. As I leaned back while swinging forward to do the flip, something got caught. I didn't flip out of it as intended, and as the swing came back down, my face caught the ground. Scraped it up pretty bad. She laughed at me while I was holding back tears because I was a 3rd grader. Hosted my first house party. Drink was flowing. I was convinced I was as cool as liquid nitrogen. A girl I invited and had hopeful designs on mentioned she wanted a drink, and trying to be the overly cool, gracious host, I leapt out to the patio to get it from the cooler. Helpful friend had closed the patio door in the meanwhile. I spammed face first into it at high speed, so hard it reverberated like jelly, in front of literally everyone. I saw stars and bled a bit from my lip. Amazing quick thinking bro who was there shouted overly loudly through his laughter. I never thought you would do it, and showily gave me a $5. Saved my butt from absolute embarrassment. The girl was very kind in not mentioning it beyond checking how my concussion was. Look before you leap, folks. That's a wingman. Truly some gold leader crap. While heading out to the pub after prees, I decided to look a bit cool and jump down the last 4 steps of the stairs. I landed and my knee cracked like crazy. After 8 weeks of doctor's appointments and physio, I found out I had ruptured my ACL. So I'm having surgery for it in August, half a year after it happened. And I miss out a year of proper sports and exercise. Easily the second I regret the most in my life. Ouch, dang man. Well, on the first date I went on, I was coming out of the ice cream shop and missed the step. Ended up lying face down on my ice cream cone, with 2 skinned knees, and I tore my dress. Super smooth move. I was in 4th grade and I liked this girl. For whatever reason I thought it would be cool if flung a dum-dum lollipop around my mouth with my tongue. So I made these neurotic flailing motions with my tongue to jam the lollipop around. It was so cool until I choked on the dang thing. I swallowed it and the teacher had to jam his hand in my mouth, pull it out by the stick. Let's just say she didn't think I was very cool. Now that I think of it though, that hurts a little because I nearly killed myself with a lollipop trying to impress her. Raro. First time I smoked pot. I was 15, at a party trying to bum a cigarette, when I got chatting to these 2 hot girls. This guy from my class came over, and he was smoking a joint. I asked him if he had a cigarette. He said no, but passed me his joint. I'd never smoked pot before, and to counter my nerves I was overconfident and took a massive drag. Crap went straight to my head. I started coughing and spluttering all over these 2 girls. I think I might have been a little bit sick too, and one of my friends had to dive in and rescue me. I had to sit down and drink water for like 20 minutes to recover. Bruh, how you get so hard? Back in college, I was trying to flirt with a friend of my brother. She had posted a lyric from the Jars of Clay song, Dead Man, as her Facebook status. Trying to be edgy and clever, I replied with an adapted lyric from the same song. I'm looking at your body through a new spy satellite. Yeah, she didn't recognize that lyric. She called my brother in a panic, asking if I was stalking her or something. She's pretty dumb to believe that. Probably for the best. When I was in grade 6 I think, we were heading out for recess. I was a bit late so it was just me and one other kid chatting on the way out. I noticed the door swinging shut as someone just went through, and I thought it'd be funny to pretend to not be paying attention and run into it, using a trick I had of throwing up my hands quickly to make a loud thud while protecting my face. I was a pro info running into walls, except I mistimed it and smashed my face into a reinforced glass window, taking a good sized chunk out of my 2 front teeth. That really hurt, and have capped teeth on the front ever since. My dad told me a story about how he once tried to impress a girl. He wanted to light a firecracker in his mouth like a cigarette, spit it out, and have it explode on the ground. He decided that wasn't a good idea. He lit the firecracker in his hand instead. He threw it, and it exploded instantly. If he had put it in his mouth he would have blown his jaw off. The moral of that story was basically don't be an idiot, son. Middle school. Smoking for the first time in a cemetery with a bunch of older kids. Tried to pitch the cigarette butt with my thumb and middle finger. Something happened and it instead flew backwards into the sleeve of my Adidas jacket. Rando the cemetery trying to get my jacket off. Reminds me of the first time I smoked weed and didn't know what a carb was. They people who smoked me out kept trying to tell me that I was supposed to plug up that hole on the side of the bowl, but I just wasn't getting it. I didn't even get high, but I pretended I did. It was my last week of college, and my apartments were having an end of the year pool party. I was partly there for a break from studying, but mostly to hang out with the ridiculously hot international students that lived in the complex. So, when a game of frisbee was starting, I, a decidedly not sporty, awkward girl, strolled over all confident and asked to join. One of the guys throws me the frisbee, and miraculously I catch it. But I get a little too enthusiastic throwing it back. I can still see that frisbee sailing over the fence and closing the pool, flipping vertical in midair, and coming down hard on the sidewalk. Frisbee shards went flying and I just stood there in shock. I gave up in that moment, knowing there was no saving me, and went back to floating in the pool, drinking away the embarrassment. I feel your pain. Countless years of gym class and the only time I managed to get a ball in the basketball net was during volleyball. So in high school there was this kid who once walked over to the table where me and all of my friends used to sit, and sincerely told us he drank an entire bottle of vodka over the weekend in one go. We all laughed. Later on we had a drugs and alcohol talk, where they told us alcohol is bad. We walked back into class, and me being the dong I was, shouted across the class, "Vodka, learnt any lessons? Voice crack. Oh man, ball squeaks were the worst." Decided to buy a sports car, picked out a red Porsche. Test driving the car I was stopped at a stoplight, and a bunch of people were waiting to cross the street. I had the top down, and was winking at the girls in the group. Light turns green. I put it in gear to go, and stalled it. They started laughing, and my brain shut off and I couldn't remember how to start a manual. Had to wave the cars behind me around, get it started, and drive off and get caught at the next red light a couple blocks away. Same group of people. I was smiling pretty big trying to pretend like I wasn't embarrassed. After all, I was in my mid-20s in a new Porsche, but then it happened a second time. Decided maybe a Porsche wasn't for me. I was 18. Walking around town with a cigarette, looking real cool. Why take the cigarette out of my mouth to ash it? I flicked the cigarette and it bounced up and hit me in the corner of my eye. A bloody tear streaked down my face and I got a blister on my temple. I love how so many of these are just people learning about physical limitations, risk, and decision making. The boy I liked stole my hair ribbon, and so I pushed him into a desk. He fell over backwards and the desk toppled and so did like 3 tertiary desks. I was horrified because I just wanted to show him I was cool and couldn't be messed with or whatever, but obviously pushing him into a desk was an overreaction and it was not my intent to make him fall over. I apologized so many times until he got annoyed and called me a B. I was still into him for like 4 years after that. I love your username. In 6th grade I did something similar to a classmate during gym. I was jokingly pretending to hit him on the head with my badminton racket while he was bent over but I accidentally smacked him pretty hard on the head. I felt really bad and ratted myself out to the teacher immediately so I wouldn't get in trouble. I got with the hottest guy in my grad program. He'd played football for Stanford, had a godly body, and was just plain gorgeous. He was also stylish as heck, smart, and down to earth, and he was black. After we had sex, we were chilling at his place and talking. He was telling me about how he was adopted, and he said something about how his parents, adoptive parents, were freaked out when they adopted him. And then I let loose this masterpiece of racism and idiocy. Oh, in case you were a crack baby? Holy crap dude, that's like Always Sunny levels of self-awareness, or lack thereof. The list is too long. I am so awkward. One time I remember is when I was hanging out with some friends. They were in a death metal band and they were talking about an upcoming gig at a big festival. One of them said, "I want people to scream the lyrics. You should learn the lyrics to some of our songs." I replied with, Do you know how long it's been since I have been on stage? Another band member said. You? Who do you think you are? We were talking about the crowd singing. Oops. TBH, if that guy was so passive aggressive towards you, he was probably an but. It could be played off as a joke, but that was a dong move by him. I wanted to impress this 18-year-old boy who I had a crush on. He was a big stoner and invited me to a concert with him and his other friend. When we get there, he asks if I want to try pot. I say okay because I'm 14 and I think I'm in love with him, but I don't really know what pot is at the time. So I smoke it and I begin to freak out. I think I'm allergic to the weed and the loudness of the heavy metal concert we were at wasn't helping. I started freaking out and crying and hanging on to the guy who I liked. He brought it up literally every day of the summer after that. That's really not very nice of him, though. I once hung out with a group of stoners for New Year's when I was 18 or so. Didn't even smoke anything myself, but all the secondhand smoke, winter, closed rooms, got to me. I had a major freak out about the fireworks, so they calmed me down, brought me back to their house and made sure I went to bed. Never mentioned it since. There was this kid that went to my high school that was incredible at chess. He was captain of the chess team and did really well in competitions in the area. I was at a competitive school where people generally respected excellence, so everyone in the school just knew that this kid was the best. One day he was in the lunchroom playing blitz with 1 minute on his clock and 10 minutes on his opponents and still crushing everyone. He even let people play against him as a team. I just sat next to him and watched game after game, never playing myself but commenting with him on the other players. I had no idea what I was talking about but was good enough at mirroring him that eventually he began to think that I too was a great player, so he suggested a match straight up, to which I responded, why not blindfolded? I'd seen him do this before, so I knew he could play without looking at the board, but I was completely incapable of this, so I made sure to tie my blindfold with the smallest crack so I could just barely make out the board and play a normal game. Because of his huge handicap, I actually was doing okay when a crowd started to form. We each had people moving our pieces for us, and slowly over the next 15 minutes a group of 50 or so people encircled us. It was nearing the end game, and I had a slight advantage, so I may have actually been able to beat him. Because of his reputation and mine as a complete unknown, no history of playing chess with these guys, people were rooting for me and there were cheers whenever I took a piece. So I'm high on life and know that even if I lose, I'm still going to get a lot of props for being able to play like that. When I tell them to make a move to a position in row 9, there are only 8 rows on the board. I was looking at the side of the table that had the numbers printed for his viewing, assuming he was not blindfolded, and I saw his upside down 6 as a 9. It took the people watching all of 5 seconds to figure out the mistake I had made and then realize that this was a result of being able to see the board. I didn't get booed, but a lot of people just walked away and groaned. The chess star kid simply shook his head at me and packed up the board. I was so close, 5 more moves and I may have had him. Or even if I lost, I would have had some rep as a chess player and then just avoided playing in order to maintain it. So close, yet so far. It also probably says a lot about my school if my "I was just trying to be cool" story involves me trying to get in with a chess hustler. Haha, so close, man. Good effort. I've got 2 for you, friends. 1. Elementary school. The class is playing on the playground, which has a set of gymnastics bars. I get onto the bars and attempt to flip down and hang by my knees, as I have done countless times before, in an effort to impress my friends. I am wearing slick athletic pants, which cause me to slide off the bar completely, fall to the ground, and break my collarbone. 2. Riding my bike past a friend's house when 2 of the more popular girls in class are out in the yard. I did not expect to see them there. They see me and call out to say hello. I attempt to slow my bike down but hit both handbrakes at the same time, causing my bike to stop instantly. I am thrown over the handlebars, but I don't let go, so the bike flips on top of me and I fall into the road. Only minor bruises. In front of the 2 most popular and attractive girls in school. Middle school was great. I was a kid in 5th grade. I'd always been a decent student, and for 5th grade, I thought that meant not cool. Teacher called an emergency meeting at our usual morning meeting spot. Everyone is sitting down in a circle while she is in her usual chair leading the morning meeting. Our progress report cards were set to come out soon. As she sits down she tells us that a progress report card's not going to be coming out for a while longer. Awesome, I think. Now is your time to be cool and show everyone you aren't a huge nerd who loves school. I should mention that before I took my next action, the teacher had let out a fake sobbing noise and had wiped away a fake tear from her eye with her finger, clearly to show us how ironically upset we should be about this revelation. I seize a moment just as she finishes speaking. This is your time, I thought. I jumped from my crisscross applesauce sitting position and stood, raising my arms above my head, hands balled into victorious fists, and shouted, "Yes, finally, everyone would know I'm not a nerd. I don't love school." Well, just as I finished letting out my victorious yell and was standing there, I immediately noticed something was very off. The teacher wasn't fake crying, and immediately let out a deep sob, face in hands. I stood there as she took her sadly twisted face from her hands, only to barely get out. "My dog was hit by a car and killed last night," immediately dropping her face back into her hands and sobbing more heavily. I just stood there like a goddamn deer in headlights. She loved that dog, talked about it all the time, brought him into class once and he was awesome. We all loved that dog. I remained standing, hands dropping slowly to my sides, not sure how to proceed. It wasn't until another girl in the circle looked at me and yelled in a loud but hushed voice, "Johnny Hopscotch, sit down." Regaining some semblance of brain function, I sat. Meanwhile the teacher continued to break down completely, crying for what felt like an eternity as we sat there in silence, nobody sure how to proceed. At some point she dismissed us and left to go to what I assume was the bathroom. I'm an adult now. I learned to love the fact that I was an academic-minded person. Graduated from law school last week. It's not finals, existential crises, or anything else that keeps me up at night nearly 16 years later. It's this. Fortunately, everyone was so saddened by the event nobody brought it up again really. I didn't really have any close friends in that class, and soon graduated from elementary school to middle school. There may not even be another person who remembers that incident today, but I know it's coming with me to my grave. This is beautifully written. I can't stop laughing. Your poor teacher. College class, my freshman year. Teacher was going over the basics of how to properly format assignments. He got on the topic of when to use dashes and how to use the right ones, M dashes versus N dashes and such. He mentioned how in Word it will usually correct to the correct type of dash after hitting the space bar. I piped up and explained to the class how you could use the various dashes at any time, even outside Word, by using the keyboard shortcuts Alt, hold it down, +0151 for the M dash and Alt +0150 for the N dash. I felt so proud of myself for knowing such an obscure, useful fact, but in the heat of the moment I guess I came across as really smug, because I got a couple comments from my close friends afterwards about how off-putting I was. This is actually really useful. Thanks for the tip. I'll be sure to use it whenever I'm writing. Middle school seems to be the sweet spot for memorable embarrassing moments. Mine is after a huge rainstorm. The school field had a huge puddle with an island that was close enough to jump to if you could jump far. As everyone was leaving I figured I would jump to the island and jump from there to the other side to impress people with my ability to jump over stuff. But when I landed on the island, because it is a wet grass hump, my legs just slipped right out from under me like a cartoon character stepping on a banana peel, and I slid on my back and butt all the way into 6 inches of water and mud to everyone's great delight but mine. I then had to walk home because my friend's grandfather wouldn't let me in his car, haha. To impress people with my ability to jump over stuff. This perfectly describes all middle schoolers. 7th grade. We were just leaving lunch when I got to the door, which was about to close, and decided to try something cool. Instead of holding the door open I tried to slide through the small space. I made it through but proceeded to trip and face-plant on the pavement. I deserved it. Tried to do a backflip off the school playground equipment. Didn't flip all the way and belly flopped on the ground. Hurt like heck, but it got my then crush to notice and talk to me. That's a win in my book. Was going to ask a coworker out right before summer started and she left work until next semester. She ended up engaging me, at work, with a similar interest in mind, and I, in all of my coolness, Wasn't prepared for that to happen and I got nervous, leading to a slight FU where I didn't realize that she was done talking and it was my turn to take a hint, so I said something stupid like yeah. Immediately her and her friend said something about setting me up so well and I was super flustered. I figured that asking her out, at work might I say, at that point would just be a bad idea, so I asked for her number. Still flustered and probably red as a tomato. She said she wouldn't give it to me jokingly, but I was beyond the point of no return and I ended up tossing my phone at her, told her to put her number in it. Literally one of the most awkward exchanges I have ever had with someone of the opposite sex. We're all good now though, so I guess it didn't backfire all that much. 8th grade gym class. The teacher split us up into groups for different activities. I was in a group with all girls to play tennis. We're lined up and the teacher is showing us how to swing and stuff. Girl in front of me swings too hard, full on smacks me in the face with a tennis racket. I immediately wanted to cry. I had a I am not crying cry face going on. Embarrassing, since I thought I could impress the 4 girls in my group as the only guy. Instead quite the opposite happened. For a second I thought this was my story until I remembered it was badminton and the only guy in my group hit me in the face. Was in 8th grade though. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.